Today we're going to be talking about the fedcoin. We're going to talk about what is it and what can you do about it. Now, most people don't even realize that this is a reality of what is to come. Like, this has actually been discussed, and most people are totally unaware of this. Now, this article actually comes from February of 2020. The U.S. Central Bank is looking into it. They're talking about fedcoin. Hey, before we get into this video, I want to quickly say I have just launched my Crypto Passive Profits book. You can come down here. You can check it out. I'll put a link down in the description. Guaranteed to work, 5-step formula to building a passive income business from scratch within 24 hours. Guaranteed. All right, so here we go. Here's the thing that I want to talk about because most people aren't even aware that what this is. So fedcoin, I have a cryptocurrency YouTube channel, obviously. And if you love cryptocurrency, hopefully you're already a subscriber. Smash that like button. But more people need to know, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. What are you waiting on? But most people don't really know what fedcoin is, or they make the mistake and think that it's some sort of cryptocurrency. And we really need to get this information out there. And very few people are talking about this. And as I've been doing more research, I'm a little bit concerned. And you can almost see the writing on the wall. Now, the good news about this is if you're an outside the box thinker, if you're, kind of an eyes wide open type of person paying attention, I think there's potential here to be able to make some good moves financially. At the very least, it's about protecting and protecting your family, minimizing the effects of fedcoin. But most people, mark my words, are walking, their head is in the sand. I don't know how you walk with your head in the sand, but they're just not paying attention. They just don't care. I have a friend of mine, she told me, she said, listen, I totally understand what you're saying when you explain this to me, but I don't want to understand it. I don't want to hear it. And that's unfortunate because I think we have a society of people that are just weak. I mean weak-minded. They're just weak. By the way, if you're not a weak person, make certain that you smash that like button, but because we want more people who aren't weak to be able to watch this video on YouTube. So the fedcoin in and of itself is a digital type of currency. I think a better description of this is central banking digital currency. It's a digital currency in some ways similar to Bitcoin, but with a very important distinction. You see, Bitcoin operates on a blockchain that is a decentralized blockchain, meaning no one person controls it. With Bitcoin, any of us can look at transactions that have occurred. If you know the wallet addresses, you can track transactions even, which is both good and bad depending on what you're using Bitcoin for. However, fedcoin, we probably will not be able to track transactions, but the federal government is able to see every transaction that's occurring, when it occurs, who it belongs to. Fedcoin is what's considered a centralized cryptocurrency. It's not a true decentralized cryptocurrency. Fedcoin this has already been attempted to go into action, and most people are unaware of this. So when we had the first stimulus package because of, C-19 thing that's going on, before we had that stimulus package, the very first stimulus package, the Democrats were actually looking to pay everyone their stimulus through the fedcoin or the digital dollar, one of the same. And the idea was that it's going to be efficient. Now, here's the key. I actually think most people will want the fedcoin to take place. You have to understand how this is going to happen. The population has to support it initially. So there's a lot of ways that they're potentially going to bring this about. It's going to come out because it's going to be easy to use. It's going to be very, very efficient. Like in this case of the stimulus package, there's a lot of issue with people getting the stimulus checks. You had to go to banks and you had to apply for it. And then some people, if you didn't do your taxes in time last year, whatever, you didn't get your stimulus check and all this stuff. But with fedcoin, it could literally digitally be moved into a bank account or on some sort of a card, like a debit card or a credit card. It could be done almost simultaneously and almost instantly throughout the entire U.S. with just a few, keystrokes almost once it's set up. So there's a lot of people that are going to like this. Another reason that this is going to be, probably going to be supported is because I got a feeling it's going to come along with something like universal basic income, which is horrible. And the reason it's horrible is because when a government, when you are dependent upon a government giving you income, then the government now is able to control you through your dependency. They can threaten to cut that. People literally vote based on who's going to give them more money or less money without understanding the ramifications of that money. So universal basic income is not even, here's the crazy thing. Here's the telltale sign. This has come up in conversation a lot more. And ironically, it blows my mind. There's a few people in cryptocurrency that are actually supportive of universal basic income, and you have no conceivable idea what you're doing. When you need the government to give you money, you're going to be beholden to whoever's in the government. Like, that's a form of control, and people don't realize it. But we'll talk about how you can minimize some of that here in a minute. So I'm going to lay all of this out for you because I think there's a lot of things that people don't understand, but then I'm going to talk to you about what you can do. Here's the thing with fedcoin. First, people are going to like it. They're going to support it. But then once people totally opt out of the traditional system and everybody's in a digitalized dollar like fedcoin, then at that very moment, there's no way to go backwards to the original fiat paper money system. Now, why would the government want fedcoin? Well, first and foremost, it gives control. Now, here's what they're going to tell you. Just the same exact way they attack Bitcoin right now. They attack Bitcoin because they say, oh, it's used, for money laundering and terrorist organizations, which isn't true any longer. Now those organizations use privacy coins like Monero, etc. But the government will argue against privacy. They've already done that. That's why KYC and AML exists. Know your customer and anti-money laundering laws. Most people don't even understand what know your customer even fully indicates. It literally means if you go to the bank and you make a withdrawal and the banker doesn't feel comfortable about your withdrawal, most people think that you only get flagged if it's over $10,000. That's not true. If the banker does not feel comfortable about your withdrawal, the same smiling neighborhood face that you might actually know that person, if they don't feel comfortable about your withdrawal, then they have to, by law, they're compelled to fill out a form basically saying that and I could be saying this wrong, but it's like a suspicious transaction. It needs to be watched, if you will. If you go to the bank and you make any sizable withdrawals, say, $500, $1,000, don't be surprised if they're like, oh, are you going on vacation? They're politely inquiring about what you might be using that money for. But when you have a digital dollar, they don't have to worry about inquiring. They can pay attention to it. And they're going to claim that it's to fight money laundering because they're going to say the actual dollar now. Keep in mind, they attack Bitcoin by saying Bitcoin gets used for money laundering while never acknowledging that it's actually the US dollar that's used for money laundering more. But what they'll eventually do is they'll say, hey, it's not just Bitcoin. Now the dollar, we now have a way that we can prevent money laundering from occurring. We can monitor terrorist activity, and they will be able to monitor potential terrorist activity. I mean, that part is actually a positive, of course. They're only going to talk about the positive. They're not going to talk about the negative. So they're going to say, hey, this is for your safety. This is for your security. Then everybody will ultimately end up on the fedcoin. And make no mistakes about it. You and I will not be able to stop it. It's already in place. It's not just the U.S. government. The Australian government's looking at this. I mean, there's, the Chinese government are talking about, I think by the end of 2021, they're going to have a digital dollar. I mean, every major government's looking at doing this. What will ultimately happen is all the populations will want it, but then the government's going to be in control. And here's what happens. All of a sudden, the government knows exactly what assets you have, what's in your bank account, what you're invested in, period. They know full well what you have. Of course, you better hope that whoever the actor is that is the president, you better hope it's someone who's not going to abuse that power, but they will know exactly what you have. And here's the thing. They will literally be able to take money in or out of your bank account. So, for example, if you're behind on a tax payment, if you, God forbid, whatever reason they would garnish your wages today, they can do it with the fedcoin far easier, far quicker, far simpler. And most people don't think about it. This is a huge problem. And if you're someone who values your personal freedom, this is an elimination of privacy, and no question, it's an elimination of freedom, because whether you realize it or not, at that point, by the time fedcoin is here, you can only spend money if the government agrees with what you're spending. So think about what this looks like. And it's hard for Americans particularly, or anyone in a relatively free society, to see this happening. But you have to understand, this has happened historically over and over again in every society. There has been no society that has been totally free for more than, I think it's like a couple hundred years. Democracy has a life cycle, and versions of democracy have a life cycle. So this is how the current life cycle of democracy could potentially come to an end, possibly. I don't think that's going to happen. I hope it doesn't happen. But what will happen is a substantial loss of freedoms. I hope we don't totally see an end of democracy, but it could happen with fedcoin. How? Well, because they can control the government. They can totally control the population based on the fact that they can control people's bank accounts. So here's what this looks like. So for example, in China, you have a social ranking. There's all these cameras all over society. And if you're seen, buying good food in the grocery store, like healthy food in the grocery store, your social ranking goes up. If you buy too much beer, then your social ranking can go down. Now they can do that based off of what you're purchasing on the Fed, because on fedcoin is basically essentially a computerized ledger. They'll be able to see that. They can tell when you're buying, and it's all going to be through, ideally it's going to be programmed in like a version of a smart contract. Those of you that are familiar with that, certain types of purchases could affect how what you're able to purchase other things for. For example, they can have negative purchases and positive purchases. If you're buying baby diapers and you're supporting a child, that could be a positive purchase. But if you're buying a gun, that could be a negative purchase. If you're, anything, alcohol, that could be a negative purchase. And if you have too many negative purchases, then what happens is you have a tax on all of your purchases until you have enough more positive purchases to counteract the negative purchases. Why would they do this? Population control. The idea is, it's all about keeping people healthy and encouraging them to make good choices. Keep in mind, there are people inside the U.S. that want to tax junk food at a higher rate because you shouldn't buy junk food. So now those sort of policies are far easier to enact when you have something like fedcoin. It gets even bigger. Everything that you buy, sell, everything that you own will be an open book for anybody who wants to see it. Period. End of story. Every single purchase. I want you to think about this for a moment. Are you okay with every single minor purchase that you ever make in your lifetime being available for a central government to always monitor? Now, some of you may be okay with that, but my bet is many of you aren't. If you aren't okay with that, let me know down in the comments if fedcoin sucks. Put that in the comments. Fedcoin sucks. The ultimate goal is to get rid of cash. Like I said, people use it for illicit purposes. And what they can do with a fedcoin, they have certain financial tools available to them to prop up an economy that they don't have now. And when I say prop up an economy, I don't mean prop it up for you or me. I mean prop it up for everyone. Prop it up for like the big businesses, the people they say who control the economy. And to some degree, big businesses is good for the economy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not anti-business. I'm not even anti-big business. I'm anti-discrimination against a small investor. I'm on the side of the common man who wants to be able to get ahead in life and wants to work hard in life. If you're on the side of the common man, smash that like button. Here's the tools that they can have available to them. And I'll give you some, again, I'm going to give you some strategies in which, some action plans on what we can do about this. But let me just finish going through this. So there's certain things that can happen, like negative interest rates. Think about that for a minute. They can create negative inflation, essentially. Negative interest rates. So what that means is they literally can create a negative interest rate so that over time, let's just say you have, $1,000 in your bank account in Fed coins, $1,000 worth of Fed coins or $1,000 worth of digital dollars. Over time, they can have negative interest rates. So your savings is basically taxed. And some of you are familiar with deflationary tokens and cryptocurrency. Imagine your holdings getting deflated, slowly over time, melting away like an ice cube. And so what that will encourage people to do is it'll encourage them to spend. They want to spend faster so they don't lose what they have. Governments now try to get people to spend through all sorts of economic incentives. They'll lower interest rates so it's cheaper to borrow money, things like that. But this is negative interest rates where you're literally losing the money that you have, so you're forced to go spend it. And by the way, a consuming society is always benefits the people who have the products and services that individuals are buying. In other words, I'll get more in this in details, but you want to get away from the consumer side of society as much as possible or minimize your role, because it's the person who is the largest consumer based on percentage basis, meaning if you make $2,000 a month, but you spend $1,900 of that just to pay your bills and buy groceries, you're going to be hurt a lot more than the person who makes $5,000 a month, but he might be spending $3,000 or $3,500 on his bills and his groceries. You're going to be hurt a lot more. The person who has to spend a larger percentage of, again, this hurts the little guy and gal. The person who has to spend the largest percentage of their income on bills and on expenses and on groceries is the one who's going to get hurt the most in this. because they don't have as much savings and it's negative interest rates. I mean, this is a horrible thing. But the reason this will occur is to potentially fight inflation. Here's another one. We're all familiar with bailouts, for example. And by the way, if you think negative interest rates can't occur, I would agree with you. And currently, they can occur. Currently, it's not something. But keep in mind, everything negative is ultimately packaged in a way to sound positive for the mass majority of society. It doesn't have to sound positive for everyone. It just has to sound positive for 51 or 52% of the people. Now, here's another one. Similar to basic income. Everybody loves the idea of free money, but they don't understand what happens when you get that free money. That's not money with no strings attached. But let's keep going. And I actually think universal basic income will happen before the fedcoin, just before. Let's talk about bailouts. We're all familiar with bailouts, right? It's where the federal government bails out, for example, car manufacturers or banks or insurance companies. We've all heard of bailouts. Well, there's another term. It's called bail-in. So a bailout is where they spend government money. They give it to companies to bail them out. And they get away with this because they're giving away your money, by the way. But most people, because the money doesn't leave their bank account, and because the money, a lot of people think, the government should provide health care. The government should provide this. Well, the government don't provide it. We all provide it. It's your money, your taxes that provide it. So when a big company gets bailed out, those investors are bailed out through your money. And unless you're an investor in that company, you don't benefit from it. But your money is used to bail them out. Well, that's a bailout. A bail-in is where they say, hey, because of everything going on, the airline industry is in trouble. So we as a society can't afford for our airline industries to go. So we have to do a bail-in, which basically is they take a percentage, or they basically can pull money out of your personal bank account with a fedcoin. Listen, understand this is no different than how if bank accounts, if you owe money somewhere, Visa, MasterCard, your bank, the federal government, anybody can now pull money out of your bank account if they need to. This just becomes exponentially easier and can convert and can occur on a mass scale when you have something like the fedcoin. They can block any transaction. If they say, hey, alcohol is going to become illegal. Look, this is how prohibition could have occurred. Alcohol is illegal. Nobody can purchase it. And if you complain about it, then you go get penalized with a negative interest rate. Think about that. Who's going to complain about it? Do you want to lose your life savings due to a negative interest rate or a negative interest penalty or whatever they want to call it? Like, that is possible. That is possible. Now, this isn't going to happen all at once over some mass, this isn't going to happen all at once. But over time, these are the things that can easily occur. One of the things that separate Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, the single fundamental thing about cryptocurrency is it's confiscation resistant. Meaning if you have the private key, the federal government has to compel you in some way to give them access to your wallet or to give them access to your private keys. They cannot just go in there and get it. And so therefore, if Bitcoin was, the primary currency of the US, for example, none of this would be possible, because on a case-by-case basis, the government would literally have to go after every single citizen. And why is that? Because Bitcoin's a decentralized blockchain where nobody actually controls it, where the fedcoin is a centralized blockchain where it is controlled by a central authority. You go to buy something, they can block any transaction. You want to make guns illegal in a society? You want to make gambling illegal in a society? Want to make cryptocurrency illegal in a society? Want to allow people that this is the Trump card, and I'm going to cover this in a later video. So smash that subscribe button. This is kind of the Trump card to fight cryptocurrency. Now, cryptocurrency, I think, has a way around this. I'll explain that in a future video. So be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit this bell notification icon if you want to hear about what I have to say about this later. But I'm going to do a video where I talk about fedcoin versus Bitcoin, or fedcoin versus cryptocurrency, decentralized cryptocurrencies. So you don't want to miss that video. So hit that bell notification icon. But here's the key. If you don't want people to purchase Bitcoin, then the strongest tool that you have is you just don't allow it. Don't worry about making it illegal. Just don't allow it. And they'll know, like, every certain wallets, certain transaction IDs or whatever will be associated with cryptocurrency, will be with cryptocurrency purchases, or say an online gaming purchase or whatever. They'll know. So it's not like it's going to be hard to stop. Here's another risk. There's a risk to bad actors. Now, what do I mean by bad actor? Well, it's anyone who's able to get access at the highest levels and do bad things. So a bad actor could be a future bad president. And again, we're going to talk about some of what you can do to mitigate this. But a future bad president is a bad actor. And maybe it's not a president in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, or the next 50 years, but we're talking about a really bad person. Keep in mind, even Hitler was voted in by the people. The masses are often wrong. So at some point, if we were to get a bad president, and by the way, we're talking about the fedcoin to digital dollar in the U.S., but this could occur with any country that has a digital federal currency or a central banking digital currency. So it could be the president, someone at the presidential level, for example, a bad president. It could be someone in charge at the Federal Reserve who is a bad actor, and say they decide to try to steal money or whatever, create policies that can hurt people, like negative interest rates. I mean, that's the worst thing that could happen is negative interest rates hitting your direct bank account. I mean, that's just brutal. But make no mistake, fedcoin is on the way. And once you have fedcoin, now it's not about fighting the digital dollar or the creation of a fedcoin. Once it's here, now it's about constantly have to be vigilant, protect, and prevent all of these negatives from happening. So once you get the fedcoin or the digital dollar or the central banking digital currency for whatever country, once you have that, that opens a whole Pandora's box of potential bad things that can happen. Here's another one that people don't think about. People are like, oh, it's America. We're not going to have a dictator as a president. Okay, sure. Maybe not. Hope not. Yeah, but, if there's a Federal Reserve issue, it's easy to, if they move money, well, we should be able to track, where they moved it and how can they put it in their bank account. We should know that. Okay, I'll buy that with you. But what about a foreign hack? We've seen cryptocurrency exchanges that have spent millions upon millions of dollars on their own security get hacked at times. Microsoft has been hacked before. The Chinese government, if you don't know this, you can Google this. The Chinese government has actually put spyware inside of Lenovo laptops to the point that federal employees at one time could not use a Lenovo laptop because it wasn't software, so antivirus wouldn't pick it up. It was inside the hardware. Governments, our government and other governments, always are looking to attack each other. You can find articles about how the U.S. electrical grid is getting attacked. One of the worst bad actors on the planet is North Korea. They're actually successful at a lot of their cyber attacks. And we don't even know about it. They don't make it public knowledge. And part of the reason they don't want to make it public knowledge is because they don't want you to know how risky it would be if there ever was something like a fedcoin. But if there was a fedcoin and there was ever a foreign hack by a foreign government, game over. Like what if a federal government could pull a percentage or all of a nation's digital currency? They could just zap it, zeros. And then somehow, close up the back door. Even if the federal government was like, well, that can't happen. Well, how do you know it can never happen? And once you have control, that's a mess. That's a problem. If they put zeros in everybody's bank account, that would just be a mess. Maybe there would be some way to eventually sort it out, but that's just a mess. So what can you do about this? Let's talk about that. First and foremost, educate yourself. Be aware of this. Talk to people about it. And don't talk to them like, you're an evangelist trying to, lead them to heaven or whatever. And I don't mean that as a negative. That's just oftentimes like a Jehovah's Witness trying to ram it down people's throat. No. That's not how you do it. That's not how you get people to heaven or talk to them about the fedcoin. But it's through just normal, casual conversation. If it comes up, when it comes up, cryptocurrency comes up, explain, if someone's like, what do you think about cryptocurrency? Just explain, well, I think cryptocurrency is good as long as it's decentralized. And there's just an explanation of what is decentralization versus centralization. That's a simple question. I have this kind of conversation all the time with people that aren't in crypto. Educate yourself, be willing to help educate others. Because this only occurs because the people allow it to happen. And unfortunately, I'm afraid that we live in a society where practically, the vast majority of people out there are limp as noodles. Soft. That's the word. Just soft. I got a brother of mine. He's like, I'm not raising soft kids. Let's give everybody a participation trophy. No, life doesn't work that way. So unfortunately, we live in a society of soft people. And soft people they're non-confrontational. And they're not aware. They're not doing their own research. So you first educate yourself, start educating other people. Here's what else you can do. I'm going to give you several things. Start opting out of the dependency that you have on this current system. Now, here's what I mean by that. The number one way that most people are dependent on the current financial system is the debt they owe. Think about it. If you owe the bank for your mortgage, for example, that means you owe the bank your house. If you have a mortgage, that means that your very shelter, the roof over your head, is only there because it's blessed to be there by the bank. The bank has authority. The bank has power. You have a certain dependency. You cannot upset the bank too much. Start paying off your debt because it's going to give you a lot of options. Not just, and I don't mean just, I'm just using the example of the mortgage, all of your debt, credit cards, start paying them off. Now, I'm going to do an entire video on, and I can break down exactly how my wife and I paid off she has exact numbers, $200-something thousand in debt in 20-something months. I can break down that full strategy if you want to know exactly how we paid off so much debt so fast. If you want me to explain that, just let me know down in the comments and I'll do a video on that here in the future. I'm thinking about doing it already. So if I get several of you requesting it, I'll go ahead and do a video on it. But do your best to get out of debt. Now, I know for some of you, you're like, I have too much debt. And unless you're going to tell me, Wealth, how you got out of debt so fast, I can't get my debt paid off that fast. I get it. We may have some time anyway. It's about making small decisions later. Listen, there was a time when I was trying to lose weight and get into shape. And by the way, I'm still on that fitness journey now. But when I first started entertaining that idea, I was in my early 30s at the time. And I had a buddy of mine who lost a tremendous amount of weight. And I said, man, you got to help me out with nutrition. And here's what he said. Start with small decisions in the right step. Stop looking at the journey in total. Start looking at the end result and realizing how far you have to go. If you have a lot of debt, don't worry about how much you have. Just start small. Stop going into debt. That's the first thing. Here's the second thing. Start paying down your debts little by little. Start opting out, decreasing your dependency on the current system. And once you do that, start saving money. Why? Because when you have money in the bank or in the mattress at home or in the safe at home or whatever, when you have liquid cash that you have access to, you're able to maneuver. You're able to move. So start saving money. If you're asking me what you should do first, well, I think you need to save a little bit of money, but I think it's more important to get out of debt. Get out of debt. Get out of debt, start saving money. I think practically everyone should have some sort of a business, preferably a business that's going to be able to, create some level of passive income for you. Shameless plug. I'll put a link in the description. Guaranteed to work. 5-step formula. Building a passive income business from scratch within 24 hours. Now, this is a way you can start a business, a small business, and grow it over time. But I'm just using this as an example. There's a lot of businesses to start. There's a lot of things you can go start a YouTube channel. Go start anything. Now, keep in mind, you may be thinking, oh, but if I start a business, you're talking about, everybody being dependent on the fedcoin, et cetera. You need to have as little debt as possible. You need to have as much liquid cash saved up as possible. That gives you options. And then you need to be able to have as much income coming in that's independent of the system at large. In other words, you need to be able to have your own customers. You don't need to be reliant on just a boss. Because if fedcoin takes place, when fedcoin takes place, and not being able to know that there's such thing as negative interest rates, a lot of industries and a lot of jobs could be at risk in that sort of environment. Government doesn't like a certain industry, or a certain political party doesn't like a certain industry, then they can easily hurt that industry. They can do selective negative interest rates, for example. So you want to have as many streams of income, or at the very least, one good stream of income outside of the system. Focus on passive income investments, but the single best investment that you can make, the single biggest investment that you can make is typically in your own business. Because when you have that, typically, not always, but normally, dollar in, dollar out, having a business is going to be far better, because when you make another investment, like you invest in the stock market or whatever, you're investing in someone else's business, and you don't control the value of that investment, but you control the value of your own investment. So that would be one recommendation. So first, let's recap so far. Pay off your debt, start pulling out of the system. Also, start saving money. You want to have a liquid nest egg. Start with an extra week of savings, a month of savings, 3 months of savings. Eventually, get to a year if you can. Have investments. Focus on passive income investments, but first start by starting some sort of a business. I highly recommend starting some sort of a business in your free time and your spare time. Bootstrap it if you have to. Start on a low budget, a shoestring budget, and build over time. Next, you want to start making traditional investments in passive income assets. One of the best by far is going to be real estate. Real estate investing is huge for a lot of reasons. Now, again, there's no guarantee. Real estate can get attacked. It just recently got attacked. They're waiving people's rents. They're saying, hey, there's a moratorium on rent. You don't have to pay rent. But that landlord who still owns a mortgage is responsible for paying that mortgage. That's a problem. And this is government trying to create controls. But if you're able to own a property, and if you ever get to a point where you can own it outright or own it with, at least 50% free and clear, if you can own multiple properties, and we're not talking about just, cash flowing $50, we're talking about paying down or paying off those mortgages. That is the goal. Again, don't look at the end result. Just know that's where you're headed. Get out of the trap. Your own mind will trap you. Your current set of beliefs, your past experiences will trap you in what's possible more than anything else. But if you stay trapped inside of your mind, then it's going to be so much easier for you to stay trapped in the current financial system. You've got to break out of your current mindsets about what's possible for yourself in your life. Start looking at those passive income investments. Start looking at investing, for example, in real estate. Also, start opting out of look for investments that aren't going to be politically dependent, meaning look for investments like real estate in other countries. Look for investments like cryptocurrency. That's a good way to start opting out. It may have its own risk at the time, and the government may compete directly against it. But until the point that they tell you point blank it's illegal, and listen, cryptocurrencies have been under attack. I've recently done 2 videos on the UK government attacking cryptocurrencies, and I've also done a video on how the US government is attacking cryptocurrencies. I'll put both those videos above. I'll put them down in the description. You can watch those videos. You can go watch those videos, but start opting out of the system until it's outright illegal to own cryptocurrency. Another thing you can do is buy gold. But here's the thing. Focus on one investment. Go build a business. Once you have an income coming in, you can only do one thing at a time, right? Pay off some debt, start your savings, start a passive income business if you can. And then once you build that up, then start diversifying, right? Maybe buy some gold, buy some Bitcoin, buy some Ethereum, and put yourself in a position. I always tell my wife, understand the rules of the game. It's important for us to understand the rules of the game. And in this case, I'm talking about the financial rules. It's important to understand the rules of the game. It's important to understand what's coming, because even though most may suffer, not everyone will suffer equally. Not everyone will suffer equally. Remember that. And I want you, as my subscribers, my viewers, I want to make certain that you do the best you can for yourself and your family. And I don't mean this as any sort of financial advice. Just use this as part of your research. Part of your research. Hey, listen, if this has been helpful for you, please hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell notification icon. Share this channel. Share this video with somebody. If you're talking about fedcoin, if they're talking about cryptocurrency, share this video. We need as many people as possible to watch this, to know about this, and to know that this fedcoin, even though it may start out, it may sound good, it's not good for most of us. And it's not going to be good long term. If you love freedom, then you don't want to see the fedcoin. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, this is Crypto Wealth. Crypto equals freedom. I'm out. Decentralized crypto equals freedom. I'm out.